Morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you're watching from across the world and the African continent. We welcome you to AfCFTA Files. AfCFTA Files is an initiative by the Africa MSME Collective, and the African MSME Collective is a group of people who believe in Africa. So we are building Africans, we're building MSME businesses in Africa to start, set up, stabilize, scale, and be sustainably successful. Why sustainably successful? We are looking to help people build 100-year businesses on the continent that will transform lives intergenerationally and transgenerationally, so that there will be no more over-dependence on help from outside, but will become homegrown. And I believe homegrown is important because every continent that has grown and thrived has indeed supported its own. My name is Josubile Talitwala Greg, and this is an amazing opportunity for all of us as African MSME leaders to transform our local landscape, to be committed to the cause, to fight the good fight with all our might, and to ensure that at the end of the day, the thing that thrives is our continent. We have had in scripture that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And in the generations past, it was true. It is getting harder and harder. And what I know we must begin to do as a people is think about how to leave inheritances for our children's children. So welcome to the show, and I hope you will enjoy. Today we're talking about a very interesting thing called tariffs. And I love the conversation of tariffs because if we are going to go into the space of international trade, we must be ready to trade as a people. So we'll be talking about tariffs and international trade simply because these are things we need to know. So we're currently on the track on this conversation of the things we need to know. But a couple of facts we need to know about what the AfCFTA is. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is an agreement that has created the largest free trade area in the world. There is none the size of us. It connects 1.3 billion people. It includes 55 countries. It has a combined GDP of 3.4 trillion and counting because our GDP is growing all the time. So a few things about it. It was put forward in the 18th session of the African Union meeting in Ethiopia in 2012. Soon after that, signed by 44 presidents by 21st of March 2018. Currently signed by 54 countries, ratified by 47. And we began trading on the 1st of January 2021. Now, the principal goal overriding everything else is that the AfCFTA is to harmonize the rules of trading, which means trading as a people will be simpler, easier, faster, more consistent. And I think that's a big plus. Additionally, we as the private sector must robustly test the system. Because you see, governments create trade policies, they create economic policies, environmental policies, but they are not the primary implementers. The primary implementers of any system is the private sector. So you and I must get into this thing and trade it, and then give feedback to the governments. We have recently had that there was a big conversation about the digital protocol. What happened, every nation sat down and assessed the digital protocol. And the reality is some nations are robustly further ahead than others. But because of their systems trading, like Kenya is one of the countries that is really ahead because we are very, very, very digitally enabled, because we have stable internet and our young people are using that a lot and all other businesses are using that a lot. The feedback from those sessions is what has helped the governments go back and renegotiate and put in the right measures to support us. So we must actively test it. But let's go to the subject matter of the day. Today we're talking about tariffs. When you think about a tariff, it's simply a tax imposed on goods or services, or it's an extra fee. So say I'm bringing in bananas from Uganda, and we already grow bananas here, there may be a charge on that. Or I'm bringing in a car from Japan, there will be an extra tariff on that. There will be a charge imposed that I, the importer, will pay, but it's because the goods come from another country. And it's never just goods only, it's always goods and services. And the result of this is that the price of the goods and services goes up. So for instance, and I'll use a simple thing, you buy a car for 600,000, bring it to Kenya, your import duty could be anything from 25%. Okay? So automatically, I must know as the importer that when the car gets off the ship at the port of Mombasa, there is X% of the price I need to pay. I need to have it in hand. And then say I'm bringing in tires, the same thing happens. So it increases the price of goods from what it was in the source country to a different price in the import country, which then in some instances may make it less attractive to domestic customers. Okay, different example. If I bring in rice from China and we have rice farmers in Kenya, the government may choose to impose a tariff on imported rice. What they're trying to do is to ensure that the price is a little bit higher than the local one. So those who are price sensitive will focus on the cheaper priced product. That's what happens when you have tariffs. But the reason governments impose tariffs is very simple. Sometimes it's just to raise revenue. Remember, government is not a business that trades to make money. A lot of the government's revenue comes from taxes. So that's why we pay value-added tax. That's why we pay corporate taxes, companies. That's why we pay as you earn. The government gets a lot of its revenue locally, either from domestic borrowing or from taxes. And when those are not enough, then it will get money from development partners. Now, raising revenues, it becomes then a natural thought to a lot of governments that let us put taxes on goods coming in. That's number one. But number two is to protect domestic industries. And I think I've already given one example of that, the rice conversation. We also have things like maybe the neighboring country has better potatoes or a more steady supply of potatoes. So to avoid the flooding of the market, a government would impose taxes at the border, which is tariffs, to slow down the incoming of that. Remember, we said one of the key results of putting tariffs is that prices go up. So if something is significantly cheaper in its source country than the production cost in the home country, then the government can levy a tax, put on a tariff that will push that price up to closer to where the domestic price is, to either compete or to be more expensive so the domestic one still has an opportunity to thrive. The third reason they do it is to protect domestic customers. So say your product is coming from a place that is unregulated, or it's coming from a country where it is easy to get around rules and regulations, so some of their products will not be top-notch. If that information is known, a government can levy a blanket price on certain products coming from certain spaces. Understand that taxes, tariffs, don't have to be blanket. It could be that India decides to do what? To put a tariff against products coming from an unregulated market. So they will not tax the ones coming from the regulated market, but from the unregulated market, they will put a higher tariff on it. What that does, it protects from counterfeits. And I think a lot of our African countries have had the instances of product dumping, where products are produced in nations that can do major mass production, and for certain reasons, they then take the lower quality version of the product and export it to us who are undeveloped because we need cheaper products. But there are certain measures that are not in place.
For instance, if you look at the cars that the United States imports, a lot of their specifications are higher. They import newer cars. But then you find on the African continent, some of us even import cars that are 10, 12 years old. So I remember a few years ago what the Kenyan government did